It's Michael Rogers. Welcome to Bodywork Boxing. Man, top rank treachery. First, I want to apologize to O'Shaquie Foster. We've all been through some things where we really outperformed our competition and we really won, but for whatever reason, we get robbed of a time when we actually demonstrated a certain level of greatness. And so I want to apologize, but I also want to transition into let this be a cautionary tale for everybody who believes that they can go in and just do, not saying that O'Shaquie did this, but long story short, we need to stop leaving the fight into the judges' hands. You know, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. I try not to listen to too many takes or be involved in too many discussions about this before I render my own conclusion based on my homework. And when I look at the numbers in this fight, let's start with the numbers real quick. And when I actually look at these numbers, I'm saying, how in the world did O'Shaquie Foster lose the fight when you look at total punches? He threw 435, landed 109. Conceicao 701 and landed 76. So in actual punches, O'Shaquie Foster outlanded him by at least 30, because we know there might be some inaccuracies with the clicks and all that. But when I'm looking at it, Conceicao outlanded him with body shots, 27-20. But it was actually 109-76, so he outlanded him by 36 punches. Conceicao only landed 10% of his punches. So when he had the high activity rate of 701, which is about 58, average about 58 punches per round, he was only landing at 10%. And meanwhile, O'Shaquie Foster was throwing about 435, which is about 30, high 30s, like 38 punches around, and he was landing at 25%. That means 1 out of 4. So Conceicao was landing at 1 out of 10, and O'Shaquie was landing at 1 out of 4. And we'll get to the scoring criteria here in a second. Total jabs. Conceicao 388, landed 27. O'Shaquie Foster outlanded him 51-27 in jabs. And again, Conceicao was doing more work to the body. But in jabs, Conceicao was less than 7%, and O'Shaquie Foster was almost at 20% at 19%. And then in power punches, Conceicao threw 313 and landed 49 at 15.7%. And in power punches, he did not win in that game because O'Shaquie outlanded him 14-12. O'Shaquie threw 172 power punches and landed 58, which is at 33%, who was closer to, you know, the number of 40%, which leads to a dominant performance when you're talking about power punches and what power punches really do entail. So I say in actual landed punches outside of the body work, which I'm not gonna, I don't discount body work. You know, this is Bodywork Boxing, aka ThePulseOfBoxing. But when I look at this, I'm like, okay, so in actual punches, O'Shaquie outlanded him, and then when you're talking about accuracy, he was more accurate. And so I said, okay, well, there's some people that's going to actually bring up the 4 criteria for judging a boxing match. So let's look at it. And so when you look at the 4 criteria for actually scoring a boxing match: effective aggression, the fighter who consistently lands punches while avoiding their opponents. So you're landing and he not. That famous plus minus. Defense, how well the boxer blocks, slips, and parries punches. Ring generalship, the fighter who controls the action and imposes their will and style. Clean punches, hard shots that land flush rather than being blocked or missing. So by that definition, O'Shaquie Foster really won the fight because he fought his style. When he didn't want to be touched, he couldn't be touched, but he could touch his opponent. Accuracy. Defense. When you talk about defense, if you threw over 700 and something punches and you only landed 10%, that speaks to who had the better defense, especially when you threw almost half the amount of punches as your opponent, but you were way more effective, 2.5 times more effective in actually landing yours. So I want to say, you know, my hat goes off to O'Shaquie, man. I seen, you know, the eyes welling up, and it's nothing for you to hold your head down, man. I just hate to see that this actually happened. And I was just as vocal when I seen Valdez, Robeson, and when that whole ordeal happened on Top Rank, and I was, you know, I was embarrassed for Robeson, did a video, was just as vocal as now. But just because they did it then and they want to redeem it for Conceicao does not mean that O'Shaquie Foster deserved to be robbed like that. And to be honest, I was very impressed with Kelvin Davis. I was highly impressed with the Abdullah Mason, aka the tarantula in my boxes to watch. You know, I was entertained by Keyshawn. And when it came down to watching this fight with O'Shaquie Foster, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of ruined my appetite. Then I said, okay, well, if Shakur Stevenson fights this same fight with this same defensive oriented, you know, hit and not get hit style, Teflon Don, which is what I call this style at O'Shaquie, because he could not hit him. It was nothing but shoulders. He mastered that shoulder roll. It was just going off shoulders, top of the head, and gloves. That was it. Just grazing off the top of the head if it landed. So it was an immaculate defensive performance. And listening to O'Shaquie, he said, I just felt like, hey, I wanted to show that if I don't want to be touched, I can't be touched. Which I don't blame him for executing it. He did it masterfully. Conceicao looked like he was out there just fencing, poking holes in the fence, just seeing what stick, and just couldn't land. No adjustments. And we all know that if you're average, he can get you out of there. If you're above average and you're in that elite, you're going to be able to leap past him. And I think that this was a travesty. I think that this was treacherous. And I want to say, O'Shaquie, man, keep your head up. Keep your eye on the prize. Come right back and be very vocal. You know, be very vocal about it. Don't take this line down. And, you know, everything's going to work itself out. But kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And when we actually see the fight with Shakur Stevenson and Wally Moses, it was concerning to Wally. And he kept saying, get this guy out of there. So, the moral of the story is, don't knock fans who prefer knockout artists as opposed to the boxer. Why? Because you can box a clean, pristine boxing match and still get robbed by the judges when you put it in their hands. That's why some of us prefer that when you can master your opponent, you can make an adjustment, show that you're levels above, and you can end the contest. It works in your favor. And I think that's what also is creating more of a frenzy for people to go to things outside of boxing because of the action. When you get the knockouts and you're that accurate and you can will yourself to make an adjustment and master your opponent to end the contest, fans are going to want to see you much more. Not that fans don't want to see O'Shaquie. I think people are impressed with O'Shaquie. He did show a whole nother level of defense. Impenetrable. Maybe it was just Conceicao. But to see the man get robbed like that, it kind of spoiled the Shakur fight, or at least the way I was looking at it. I kind of felt the same way Wally was feeling, you know, when he was in the corner with Shakur, like, don't play with this guy. Anyways, I would love to know your comments. I would love to know what you think. Hit my comment section. Let me know, man. Because I seen some titles, man, where somebody was saying that it wasn't a robbery. And I said, you know what? If they believe that, I don't need to watch it. And then I also thought, well, if they do believe that, and or they don't believe that, and I actually watch it and they're actually saying something opposite, then that's clickbait. And we know how acceptable that is. I would love to get your thoughts. Love to get your comments. Because I believe it was a robbery. Anyways, thanks for choosing Bodywork Boxing. But we don't take things for face value. We do that body work.